What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the So Far So Good podcast.
We are here with our favourite special guest,
Josh
Vega.
Boys. Favourite special guest?
Favourite special
I
guest.
don't know. Don't I get killed off this season now?
Oh, he thinks because it's the third of the third, he's going to get killed off.
Like a TV series.
Well, we've got our favourite and only current guest here, Josh Vega.
Yeah.
We're here for part 3 of our 3-part series.
Yes, let's kick it off. So far, so good.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and watching once again.
Yeah, and I want to remind you, Josh, just because this is part 3 of the series that we promised at the first part, it doesn't mean you're going to get killed off. There are so many things we would love to have you on for in the future. So I hope you don't feel like you're about to get killed off this season.
Oh, that's alright. I don't mind.
that's
It's all
right.
good, guys. It's all good.
You know what
I
they
believe
say? You know what they say? You never forget your first.
Exactly. And you've been our first 3 times in a row.
First and your last.
No, we've got a lot of feedback saying, "Man, I love your guest, Josh." And we're like, "Yeah, we do too." So we can't disappoint the fans.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't have a sexy voice like you guys.
Hey.
Well, once again, we are back with, the third part of our conspiracy theories of the world.
Yeah, it's Chris's favourite thing to say, the world. Actually, Josh was saying before Josh just saw Chris tie up his man bun, and he was so impressed that he was trying to justify how Chris has gotten so good at tying his man bun.
Well,
And-
you know what they say?
What?
Practice makes perfect.
But, yeah, okay.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
And Josh's reasoning was just because every strand of Chris's hair is the exact same length, so he can just go whoosh and just make a bun. So,
I reckon at the start, it would have been hard at the start, wouldn't it, Chris?
Oh, it was so hard.
dude, I remember at the start,
hard.
the sides of his hair were like 4 centimeters long, but the top of his head was this top knot man bun hybrid.
Oh, that was the worst.
Yeah, it was.
Because people looked at me as if that was the style I was going for.
It was a very weird style. It kind of looked like a pirate ship.
Man,
Hard
it
to
was
explain, but
It was
looked
at
like a
least
pirate
6
ship.
months of that awkward stage, you know?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a sacrifice you got to make to get it how it is now.
It is
That's
a
right.
sacrifice. It's one of the reasons I wouldn't grow my hair.
Man, hard work, dedication, and motivation all pays off. In the end.
That's true. So it's not just practice that makes perfect. It's all of the shins.
The shins.
even the potassiums.
Hey, did you guys actually end up knowing how it's meant to be said?
So I
Oh.
checked about 4 different Google pronunciations of the word potassium, and most of them were potassium. I admit, I never really was confident in it. It's just what I'm used to saying, but the most of them were saying potassium.
There was only one that was potassium, and we later found out that Gaurav uploaded it.
But to be fair, there was one that was saying potassium, but it was sort of this English-Russian hybrid accent mix, so it could have just been a misunderstanding on my part. But there is one Shun word I want to talk about today,
Really?
and that's mission.
Oh.
You guys probably already know which conspiracy theory I'll be talking about.
No, I
You
don't
don't know? Do you know?
I don't know.
So
I have
just
no
from
idea.
No
the
idea.
word
When-
Shun or mission, can you take a guess?
I don't know, man. I mean, we definitely didn't plan this like 3 months ago.
Nah, definitely not. I'm thinking
Guaranteed.
Mission Impossible.
It's
Yeah,
true.
that's what I was thinking. Mission Impossible,
No.
possibly.
It's a real mission that's happened.
Mission Chips.
Unless you're one of these conspiracy. All right. Well, it's actually one of the oldest sort of theories.
Really?
Yeah. So it's actually about the moon landing in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll run you guys through it. So the moon landing hoax is one of the first conspiracies that gained traction with the American public.
So it was a hoax.
So, as in the conspiracy theory of it being a hoax.
Inside job.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Inside job.
Just clarifying.
Just
that one.
don't quote me yet while I'm explaining, but I'm not calling it a hoax because I'll just tell you straight up, I don't think it's a hoax.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's a hoax.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Outside job.
it's the it's the mission that happened in 1969 where the USA flew 2 astronauts to the moon, and that's where obviously the first man on the moon took place.
Does it say the date that they took off?
It does say the date, and I will get to that.
Okay.
So these conspiracy theorists claim that some or all of the Apollo missions, because there was 6, there was from 11 till 17, and that was between the years of 1969 to 1972.
Okay.
So the theorists, they claim that some or all of the Apollo missions were hoaxes staged by NASA and possibly, with the help and assistance of other organizations such as the government and who else knows. There's so many other organizations. And their reasoning behind this claim is that it's all so that the USA could have won the whole space race that was going on. Do you guys know what the space race is?
No idea.
It might ring a bell.
First person to touch the moon.
Essentially.
Right.
Yeah. It might ring a bell when I explain
Just a
it.
guess.
That was a good guess.
Yeah. Well, the space race, it began on August 2nd, 1955. And that was when the Soviet Union, so the USSR, when they responded to the USA's announcement about their launch of artificial satellites into the, geographical orbit. Okay. And 4 days later, Soviet Union responded and said, no, in the near future, we'll also fly out a satellite. But what actually happened was they beat the USA in flying out the satellite. So this sort of rivalry began, and it's already sort of heated because of the last world wars and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's already heated because of that. Then after they beat the US there, which was the first satellite called the Sputnik 1, and then they also beat the USA with the first human orbit around the Earth. Ooh. So they didn't fly him anyway, but they got him to space, and they orbited the Earth, which was really cool. The person's name was Yuri Gagarin, and that was on April 12th, 1961. So then the race was, the USA is like, you know what, we're going to fly someone to the moon first. And there was this whole sort of rivalry between Russia and the US, and it was really heated. I'm assuming it was super exciting, but who knows? Now, what these conspiracy theorists say, they think that none of the 12 astronauts in any of the 6 actually made it to the moon or went to the moon at all, which was between 1969 and 1972, like I said before. Now, what I'll be focusing on is what these theorists say about the first moon landing, which was Apollo 11, 1969, to the moon, which flew 3 astronauts, actually, not just 2. You guys obviously know at least one of them. Name him, please.
Mr. Armstrong.
Armstrong
Neil
man
Armstrong.
himself.
Neil Armstrong.
Oh, I know the other guy. Oh, no.
You know the other guy.
guy's Ben something in it?
Oh, close. It's Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, Buzz
Buzz Aldrin. So, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin actually landed on the moon. And the third guy, whose name was Michael Collins, he didn't step onto the moon, but he was detached from the shuttle to orbit the moon. And pretty much the mission would have been possible. It would not have been possible without him there. So shout out to Michael Collins,
Wait, so what did he do?
He had to stay around orbit, so he didn't actually land on the moon.
He was just holding up one of the stars to make it look like they're on the moon.
Wait, was he taking the photo?
No. Those other 2 were taking the photo.
So he stayed in the spaceship.
He stayed in the detached part of the spaceship that was staying in orbit. So it was just staying in space, going around, while Buzz and Neil landed on the moon. But it was a vital part of the mission. He had to be there. Don't ask for technicalities, but I'm assuming it's just for sort of transmissions to the Earth and all that sort of technical stuff.
So he just wasn't a third wheel.
He wasn't just a third wheel. He's an absolute legend.
He obviously drew the short straw on that mission.
But see, no one knew his name. We all knew that it was Neil Armstrong, and then I said Ben, but Ben. Buzz Aldrin. That's
Aldrin.
right.
Yeah.
See, no one knows about that Michael Collins guy.
Yeah.
That's like being Dennis Rodman on the Big 3 of Chicago Bulls, Chris.
Yeah.
You only think of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah. Look, it is. It is like
That's
that. The person that does the sort of major thing is going to get well known. Like Buzz Aldrin was also there on the moon, but he's obviously not as famous as Neil Armstrong, which is sad. But these things happen. I wonder how it went down. I wonder if they argued who'd step off first.
I hope they didn't flip a coin while there was no gravity.
No,
It wouldn't land. It would just keep floating.
there's gravity on the moon, but it's less pressure. So you're kind of like floating. They say you're 6 times lighter on the moon
6 times
than you are on
lighter.
Earth. So if you jump,
wow.
you're gonna land quite nicely. It'll feel like floating. So anyway, yeah.
Let's go to the moon.
That's the physics of the moon
Yeah.
in a nutshell. The theorists. I'll tell you what the theorists say, and I'll also tell you what the experts / facts say at the same time, and then you can sort of have both points of views, and you can compare and contrast in your mind at the same time.
Okay.
So, one thing that theorists claim, and one thing they say why the landing was fake, is, you might have heard this one, the flag that the crew planted on the moon was waving and fluttering in the wind. But
Oh.
how is this possible when there is no wind on the moon? Am I right? Have you
yeah.
guys heard about that one before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely heard that.
So they say they see you can see it rippling and fluttering and blah blah blah. So all of this was airing on live TV. So there was a lot of people watching. Actually, fun
Wait,
fact.
hang on a second.
Yeah,
Who was
Here we go.
recording it?
there were cameras all around. They actually hired Stanley Kubrick, you know, the famous film director from back in those days. You know the Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, he directed
Okay.
Clockwork Orange. He
Yeah.
directed The Shining.
Oh yeah.
all
okay.
that.
He was the one that.
He made a 2001 Space Odyssey. He directed those. All those
Oh wow. I don't even know.
crazy movies that were like super popular. So NASA actually hired Stanley Kubrick to sort of help him out with the best way to film everything because it was going to be aired. And fun fact, it's estimated that close or over 600 million people were watching this live.
How did they get sent live from space back
Yes,
then?
good
to the
question,
TV?
Chris.
Through the satellites, like TV.
So they really had the technology was that like
Not
top-notch
that
back then.
advanced, but it's essentially normal television broadcasting, but just to the next level. So with the help of all these sort of satellites and technology, they could show all this live. So,
okay.
yeah. And that ties into one of the sort of theory claims.
Okay.
So they say, how can the flag flutter and ripple in the wind when there's no wind on the moon? Now, what the fact is, or what the experts say, is they place the flag there, and just from letting it go, it's obviously going to twang a bit. You know, you're
Yeah.
letting it go, and the inertia from that movement, it's just going to make the flag twang a bit.
Do you
Okay, that
think
makes
it would
sense.
go really slow because of the 6 times less gravity?
Yeah. So there was a couple of different sort of clips, but it's generally still. The flag is still. You can tell there's no wind. And on top of that, they said that when they were putting the flag in, they accidentally bent the horizontal rod a couple of times. So think of it as like a T-shaped rod.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And the flag's just there, so it's open. It's not just a flop-down flag. They actually accidentally bent that horizontal part of the rod a couple times, which added to the sort of rippling effect. But then when you look at it afterwards, it's still. It's pretty still.
Okay.
Yeah, so NASA actually released a GIF later on where it's comparing 2 frames, one after each other, and the flag is not moving at all. So that's one thing. That's one thing they say. Another one. So there's so many photos of these astronauts on the moon, right?
Yeah.
You would have seen a few. I'm sure everyone's seen a few of these photos of Buzz and Neil on the moon. So in photos of the astronauts, there is no reflection of someone taking a photo in the helmet of the subject. As in, so you know the space helmet.
Yeah.
You can't see the face. It's just a reflection of what this astronaut's seeing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like looking into someone's eyes. So it's one big, like, curved mirror. And in the photo, you can see very distantly, there's Neil. So it's a picture of Buzz. Neil's very far away. And then the lander, so the ship, the lander of the ship, is close to Neil. So in Buzz's reflection, in a distance, you can see Neil, and you can see the lander in his reflection.
Okay.
And it's a photo of Buzz, but Neil's not holding up a camera. So they're saying, who's going to take the photo? Like the third astronaut's in orbit,
Yeah, that's
and if
strange.
Neil's not taking the photo, how is there a photo?
Oh, that's a good one.
But
Was it a
But
satellite?
okay, here we go. But
no, so then they're saying it's obviously a studio. There's cameras elsewhere, out of the reflection. But what the fact is, and what experts are saying, there were actual cameras mounted on the astronauts' chests. So it's not going to be Neil Armstrong holding up a big DSLR camera to his helmet trying to take a photo, which is what people are saying they can't see. It's actually on the chest. So if you look closely, you can see Neil's hands close to his chest.
GoPro. On the
Yeah,
chest.
essentially like a GoPro, but I'm assuming it's 10 times bigger. But it's on his chest, and he's taken the photo from his chest. And if you do look at the photo, you can see Neil's hands on his chest. And it makes sense. They're astronauts on the moon. They're not going to have time to hold a camera while doing astronaut stuff.
Yeah, nah, definitely not.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. And these photos are really famous. Everyone's seen these photos. So I understand why people are asking this, but there's a logical explanation, right? Surely. Another one. There were images of the lander, yeah, and it's relatively flat on the ground of the moon.
Yeah.
And the theorists are saying there's no noticeable crater or dust cloud or impact on the ground. You know when you see in a movie there's a rocket that lands and the blasters are off and there's dust going everywhere and there's a big crater where this rocket's landed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But then what the experts are saying is, look, it's not like in these science fiction movies where it's all dramatic. The engines were actually throttled back a little bit just before landing. So there was no hover long enough for there to be a massive impact on the ground.
Yeah, so it's almost like they put it in neutral as it's coming down to it.
Yeah, in like simple terms, you know.
You know what I mean?
Like it was a relatively gentle landing.
Yeah, okay.
Secondly, the photos weren't taken obviously as soon as they got off the ship. It was apparently taken mere hours after they got off. So
how long were they on the moon for?
they were on the
Hours?
moon, fun fact, almost a whole day.
Really?
Yeah.
A whole day.
Almost a
Oh
whole day,
my
yeah.
gosh.
There was a
How do you
lot of
chill on
stuff
the
that
moon
they
for a
did.
day?
They did a lot of stuff on the moon. They took some samples. They took light particle samples. They took dust and rock samples. They left boxes and cases of war medals, of messages recorded in different languages, photographs of different sort of people. Left it there just to show how sort of diverse our Earth is.
Wow.
And I think, on another hand, if there's other life outside and they come down, it's like, look, we have life on Earth.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Okay, I just got a question.
Yeah.
Those things that you said they took particles and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Is there evidence of them having that right now? Like,
There's straight up evidence, which is, it doesn't make sense.
So they have samples of that in a lab
That's what I'm
somewhere.
They
saying.
have
Yeah.
moon rocks and moon dust in lab for research. But obviously these theorists are saying it's fake.
What about Moonstone, like Pokemon?
Dude, if they brought that back, we'll all evolve. But they all had that. Actually, fun fact,
Here we go.
they had to claim the moon rocks and moon dust in customs when they got back to Earth.
How? What customs?
They had to go through customs to claim this stuff.
What customs?
Probably the USA customs. It was pretty funny when I
But
was
they
reading
just come
this.
out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly. But they
It's
had
not like
to
they
get back in
landed
the country.
Oh, maybe like it's like instead of an airport, it's like a rocket port.
A spaceport.
Yeah.
port.
So
A
you
space
get off and then you gotta walk through.
It's like that scene in Men in Black where there's customs and security,
Oh,
and it's all
yeah.
those different species everywhere. Look, it would be cool if it was
that is
like
pretty
that.
funny though.
But it's
Yeah,
pretty
that
funny
is.
they have to declare it in customs. But what are they going to check for? It's from a different planet, essentially.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also funny fun fact, not really that funny, but they had to stay in quarantine for a bit when they landed.
Yeah.
Which makes a bit of
They
sense.
could have
Oh,
had
yeah,
some
of course.
crazy diseases, man.
Diseases or, radiation, or it could be anything.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that makes sense.
Interesting.
Now, another thing, they say, this is one of the big ones, and at first when I read this, I thought, oh my god, that's so true. But then I thought again, because I should know better, considering I know a bit about the reasoning behind it, which I'll get to, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Obviously, anyway, I'll get to it. So, this one was, which is one of the major ones still going around, but it's a straightforward explanation. Chris will understand too. There are no stars in any picture. So all the pictures of these guys on the moon is just them on the moon and black sky.
That's interesting.
But there's no stars in the moon. How can there be no stars when you're in space and, you know, and it's blank. It's a blank. It's no polluted atmosphere.
Were they there in the daytime?
Well, I think it works differently on the moon. But straight up answer, when you're taking a picture on a camera, you're exposing for the subject.
Yeah.
And on the moon, there's so much glare and reflection from the sun that it was bouncing back. So they had to expose for the subject.
Well,
and
the moon is bright in
the
itself.
moon is bright in itself. It's already like a light pale grey, almost you know, white in a way.
Yeah.
Their suits are white. The lander is white, gold, copper.
Yeah.
It's all this reflective, bright colours. So
they've made it really, really darkened. So then in the distance they can't see other stars.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
here we go.
But there'd be other stars close by that you would see.
No,
Because it's not like Earth is so far away.
No,
like,
but the moon's not. The moon's only 230,000 miles from Earth. And when you think of it that way, it's not that far. It's not that much.
230,000.
230,000 miles from the Earth.
Yeah, it's actually not that far.
It's not that far considering, because it's just a moon of the planet.
There'd be
But
other stars
the
closer.
stars are light years away. Light years.
But then, alright, this is just what I'm going to say. We can see it from Earth. And wouldn't the moon be closer to the stars?
That's what
No,
I'm thinking.
but
Technically.
because a star, you can only see a star because of how far away it is. So a light year is if you go at the speed of light for 1 year, you're 1 light year away. And stars are hundreds and thousands of light years away. So just going to the moon doesn't make you any closer to the stars. Because they're still light years away.
Yeah, it almost makes you the same.
If you're close to a star, it's just, like the sun is a star. That's what a star will look like. So if you're any closer to a star, it'll just look like another sun. That kind of thing. So you're not any closer to any stars. And you're exposing for the subject. Think about these old cameras back in 1969. You can't have this. It's not like a GoPro smart photo where you know it's trying to get everything in the picture.
Yeah,
they had seconds to take these photos. You know, they wanted to just take the snap of all these different things.
True.
And you're exposing for the subject.
Yeah, if you think about it this way, if you're like in the middle of a farm in pitch black, you look up, you can see all the stars.
Yeah.
But as soon as you shine a really, really bright light on a person and take a photo of that person, the stars are going to be gone.
Exactly right.
So I'm down.
But that
I'm down
makes
with
sense.
that.
Dude, it's like you
down with that.
you can't see the stars in the day either because of the light from the sun.
Yeah.
It's almost the same concept.
Look, from
okay.
photography speaking terms,
Yeah.
I'm on board.
On board, right? Okay. So that was...
I'm happy to cancel that theory.
I was annoyed at myself that I didn't think of that first. Cause
same.
I was thinking, that's such an obvious answer.
Yeah.
Now, there's an image of Buzz Aldrin climbing the ladder of the lander.
Yeah.
So he's climbing the ladder of the lander, and the light is coming down onto the lander, casting a shadow on top of where Buzz is standing.
Okay.
So, realistically, Buzz should be pretty shaded, not that illuminated. But in the photo, he's almost perfectly lit. So, not drunk. He's almost perfectly lit up for the shot.
But that would be the light of the moon.
So, it's essentially that. So, the answer is, it's not just because there's light coming from the sun. There's light coming from the sun, but then there's also light bouncing from the moon and reflecting.
Yeah.
And there's also light bouncing from the sun, which is going to the earth, bouncing off the earth, coming to the moon.
Really?
So there's almost these different sources of light. Well, that's how we get light at night. It's the moonlight.
Yeah.
Moonlight's only getting light from the sun because the moon's reflecting light from the sun. The moon's not a source of light itself. It's pitch black, 24/7. So it's we're getting light on Earth from the sun, reflected by the moon. So that's one of the reasonings.
Yeah, so he's getting light from all angles.
Pretty much. So there was another thing to note in that photo, because the moon's full of craters and dips. It's not a flat, perfect surface.
Yeah.
So if there's a slight dip in the ground, the shadow won't be cast the same as if it were flat. If there's a dip in the ground, you're either going to be cast more of a shadow, or the shadow's not going to reach you because the shadow's kind of curving around you. So there's all those sort of light technicalities.
So that's like when you look into those, when you go into those funny things where you look at the mirror and it's convex or concave and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And you
exactly
see yourself
the same
looking
thing.
short and fat
Short,
or,
yeah.
long and skinny.
I always break
right?
out of the dance when I look in them.
Yeah, true. Just a little
Short
funny
little
thing.
stubby feet. Yeah. So it's essentially the same sort of concept.
Yeah, all right.
Now, this is another big one. When I was reading it, I wasn't sort of convinced, but it made me think. But it was a pretty obvious answer. Sometimes I think, like, these conspiracy theorists don't really think about things.
Okay.
And they
Why
just-
don't you say it and let's see if we
Okay.
can answer it.
Okay. The
Go on.
images of the astronauts' footprints are shown to be super clean-cut, perfect footprints. And they say that could only happen on something like wet sand, which can't be possible on the moon because the moon is bone dry.
So it's bone dry and is it like rock hard?
It's bone dry, and it's obviously sort of... It's not just
it's
a big rock. There's obviously... It's like dirt.
sand
It's
and
like
dust
it's like
and
dirt.
yeah.
It's like sand. But it was a pretty straightforward answer. It's
Well,
what do you think?
I don't know. When we're talking about, from my perspective, what I think is that when you're talking about the dust, well, the dust wise, and you're
Yeah.
saying how everything's lighter, I don't know if every footprint, when you press it, like there's craters in there, right? So
Yeah.
when you take a footprint, maybe it just makes a nice looking crater.
Okay, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
So like the dust that's gone up, maybe it's floated up, and then it won't land directly where it needs to. It probably off
Yeah.
tangents a little bit.
Yeah.
In that, I don't know. I could be
I know
wrong.
what you mean. You're saying sort of instead of a perfect clean cut footprint, it will just sort of be like a jab in the ground.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then whatever the leftover
Well,
dust is.
I think that's what they're saying, and they're saying the only way it could be clean cut is if it was wet sand. But
I think it's because it's times 6 less gravity, right?
yeah.
So they come down,
Yeah.
and then when they go to like push off, it's almost like they need to push harder because they're like kind of floating. So
Okay,
it's almost
okay.
like because when we're walking, our foot just moves like real quickly.
Yeah.
So we can like slide in the sand.
Yeah.
Whereas with them, like they don't have like enough traction and gravity to push off. So it's just
So them
they
pushing
just
off could make
lift
that
off,
foot-
and they don't like
yeah.
slide their foot at all.
But it's the astronaut footprint shape. They're saying there's no way you could be able to see each and every groove. It's a perfect footprint from the boot. Now, the fact and explanation is it is a bone dry. The moon is just bone dry.
Yeah.
It's dry. There's no
Yes.
water, there's no atmosphere, there's no rain. So obviously
Okay, we believe you.
yeah, it's not wet sand. But what they're saying is the moon's sort of soil or the ground is covered in very fine sort of dirt, almost like ash. And if you step in a pile of ashes, it's going to make a perfect footprint because it's so fine.
Really?
It's like when you've
Let's
got
test this.
when you've got a pile of flour. If you throw flour on the floor and you step in it, it's gonna shape around your foot
Yeah, because
really
it's so
nicely
soft and-
because it's so soft and so
Oh,
fine.
yeah. Okay, flower one, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think
they're
I've
saying it's so fine that the almost powder, like ash. So that's
So
the
they're
reason.
saying it pretty much has a full layer of like ash or
Yeah,
soft
pretty much.
dust.
So it's not just sort of rock solid ground all the
Well,
way
we
around.
need to know exactly what the surface is.
So it's
We need to know.
I'm telling you now, it's a hard, rocky place, but it's almost covered in this sort of dirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And they're saying that dirt is so fine, it's obviously going to make a nice footprint.
Okay.
So that's what they're saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Now there was various instruments, not like musical instruments, but mechanical instruments
Yeah.
and parts of the lander and the ship that were left behind on the moon. And these theorists say, with technology of telescopes such as the Hubble Space Telescope on Earth, you'd be able to see these things left behind on the moon. Like, why haven't there been any instruments and things, images of instruments released? Right? Like,
Oh, that was gonna question that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I was gonna say.
Yeah, that
we
makes
should be able to
sense.
see
so
it,
that's
yeah.
what they're asking.
Unless
now,
they left it on the other side of the moon where we can't see.
but then the moon still orbits.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say
Every
that too.
day?
Every day.
So every 24 hours we can see every side of the moon.
Well, we orbit the sun and the moon orbits us.
So does the moon go around us once every day or once every year?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
isn't it, doesn't it go according to the moon cycle or something? That's why the
I
moon
don't
changes
know
shape all the
about
time.
All right, let's pretend at some point we can see every angle of the moon.
Okay, well, okay, let's pretend that. Now, the fact is, and this is a straight up fact, it's not true. Because, yes, there are really advanced telescopes.
The fact is, it's not true.
I'm explaining why. It's not true because, yes, there are super advanced telescopes, such as the Hubble Space Telescope. But even with those telescopes, and even though they can get super close-up images of stars and planets and the moon, it can't get that detailed. And to paraphrase this expert, it was this even the smallest thing you'd be able to see on the moon from that telescope would still be bigger than the average house on Earth.
Wait, come again?
So
What?
the smallest thing you'll be able to see on the moon from the Hubble Space Telescope would still be bigger than a house.
Oh, well then they can't see it.
Exactly. So it makes perfect sense. Now they're talking about all these telescopes and why hasn't anything been released. But even better than that, in 2011, NASA launched this Lunar Reconnaissance Orbit sort of thing. It's a LRO. It was just this program for this satellite to go around the moon and just take some high detailed images.
Okay.
And when they did that, you can clearly see the instruments left behind, parts of the lander. You can even see the footprints left behind. You can even see 5 out of the 6 flags that were planted into the moon.
Why can't you see the 6th?
Because the 6th flag, which was actually the first flag that you can't see on the moon, so the first one from the 1969 mission, which we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah, okay.
Buzz Aldrin recollects seeing their ship actually knocking it when they went back up from the blasters, and it fell flat. So,
Ooh.
And if it's flat on the moon, they're saying it's probably just
Covered up
now by the
by the layer of ashy dust.
ashy dust, exactly, ashy dust, or disintegrated from the sun, or all of that sort of thing. So that's why there's 5 out of 6. But straight up, come on, that puts some more evidence around these theories.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Question.
Yeah.
When they said that you can see that, is
Yeah.
there actual images and stuff like that? Like
NASA actually released those images. It was almost like a rebuttal from all these conspiracy
Yeah, but of
theories.
course they released the images.
Yeah, but who else is
Yeah.
going to do it? Unless there's another sort of... I know there's more space companies around the world, but
Okay.
NASA is obviously a super active one. And they already have all these things to do with the moon.
It's photoshopped. NASA photoshopped it.
I'm telling you, you can literally Photoshop anything.
Well, that's what the whole conspiracy comes around. Yeah, it wasn't real. It was done in a film studio. And they say it was all studio lighting and it was all just pre-planned. It was all fake. They think that it was slow motion. They think it was recorded and slowed down. But the fact is, there was this man explaining everything in great technical detail about the cameras in 1969. The fact is, the technology wasn't there for cameras to be filming like 48 minutes straight of slow motion footage. He was saying it was live on television and it went for a long time. He said it was times when it was boring. And to film in slow motion then...
Okay, but if you can't film for 48 minutes straight, then how is it live on TV for 48 minutes?
No, 48 minutes straight in slow motion. Because if you film in normal speed and then slow it down, it's going to be choppy and jittery. Yeah. So to get good slow motion, you have to film in high speed, which is more frames per second.
Yeah.
And I think that was playing back at 10 frames per second, so then they would have had to film at 30 frames per second, which means they'd need 3 times the film, and this is physical film. They didn't have digital cameras back then. It's physical film. It was about 5,000 feet of film, and it's just... So that sounds harder to do than actually go to the moon.
So then, how did they film and televise for a day straight? You said they're on the moon
because
for
it was normal
straight.
Camera. It was playing back at 10 frames a second, I think.
Yeah.
And there was multiple. There was one main camera set up.
Did they change angles?
They were always moving the camera, so they would pick up the camera, set up on a tripod. But it was going straight.
Was it only that one camera?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or were they changing to other cameras?
As far as I know, there was the main camera recording, filming to broadcast live, Yeah. See,
'Cause if there's multiple cameras, then that takes that whole theory out.
that does. But then if there's multiple cameras, there's no one sitting there like editing it, you know?
Yeah, but they could have pre-done it. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
pre-done it. But then they would
If
still
there's
need
multiple angles.
that much to do. Plus, if they were filming it in slow motion and playing it back, that means there couldn't be a single mistake. And when you change, you have to change film when it runs out. That means that cut has to be super smooth. It was physical editing and physical cutting back in the day. It was all physical film.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
he was just saying the technology wasn't there. Obviously now there's movies about people going into the moon and space. It's so easy to do. But back then the technology was not there for it to happen.
Okay.
What about the Martian where he jumps out of the spaceship and then ends up...
That whole movie is unrealistic, but great movie.
Dumbest thing ever. He's literally floating and then what does he grab onto?
The rope? It's some
He
cable.
grabs onto
he has to
something
grab onto
and
the
then he
cable.
gets back on.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know. That movie
biggest
is...
rubbish.
It's great
That
movie.
that
I
should be
really
one of the
enjoyed the
theories.
movie. I really enjoyed the movie.
That should be one of the theories.
Can he fly off without a roof? There's an image of Buzz Aldrin collecting light particles, and in the photograph, in the top left corner, there's a bit of glare, and you know, in a photo how there's sort of sun glare. There's a bit of glare there, and they're saying that's obviously studio lighting reflections. But NASA's, or the general answer to that is, dude, if they were spending all this time and money trying to fake this thing, why would they release an image of light glare that would jeopardize the whole plan? It's obvious because he's holding up this big piece of foil collecting light
but
particles.
That's not a good theory breaker.
But-
It could have literally been a mistake.
But why would they release that photo? If they were playing this for so long, they wouldn't accidentally release a photo that has a studio light. Secondly, if you look at the photo, it doesn't look like a studio light. It just looks like sun glare, which is completely plausible considering he's collecting light particles from the sun on the moon. So it was pretty common sense to me.
So we obviously know Gaurav's 100% believer that...
I'm a straight up believer. I feel like there's no way for this long that there wouldn't even be one whistleblower, just one person going, nah, it was fake. There wouldn't even be one... theorists think that they killed witnesses, but it can only go so far.
Gaurav's going to be so upset when he finds out it was fake.
It's not fake. I have
Heart is set on it.
Yeah,
all my
he
faith
is
is in NASA. Why would NASA betray us like that? NASA's not really the government. NASA
Because
is its
what-
own entity.
what they want to do...
He's involved with the government.
No, this is what they want to do. They want to create controversy because that creates more interest.
But
which is
1969.
more donations, more money.
Nah.
That's what it is,
Okay,
man.
but alright.
I disagree.
I'm going to just have a question in general now.
Go.
It was in 1969,
Yeah.
right? So obviously we were born way after that as well.
Way after.
And then if it's the case, why can't they do a redo a person landing on the moon? You know
They
what I mean?
have.
When?
5 more times.
But is that televised as well? And
I don't
that's
know
what
if they were
mean.
televised.
That's what
I feel like the first one was televised because it was a huge deal. It's the first time someone's going to the moon. And the 5 times after that, they all actually went to the moon. So in total, there were 12 astronauts that walked on the moon.
Okay. But that's what I mean. Let's just say, for argument's sake, some of the little kids now, they're not going to understand a person walking on the moon. As if they wouldn't televise that to maybe inspire a little kid to want to be an astronaut and go on the moon.
Well, there's all these the rovers. They've sent those to the moon, and that's more evidence in itself. The rovers are showing exactly what's been in those photos.
How do they get funding for this stuff?
Dude, NASA is just NASA.
How do they get
Illuminati, government, everything.
They're the all-in-one. They're the
Maybe
all-in-one.
9/11 was powered by NASA.
Oh. But we have pieces of the moon on Earth to study.
Okay, do you have any? Do you have a sample?
No. It's still in customs. I got a couple other fun facts to finish off this topic. Buzz Aldrin actually punched a guy in the face because he went up to him and said, "You didn't go to the moon. Why are you lying to people? You're a coward." Wouldn't leave him alone. Buzz Aldrin punched him in the face.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's videos all around it.
Is he a big guy?
No, dude, he was probably in his 80s at that time as well. He's still alive.
An 80-year-old.
Wow.
He's 89 now. He's 89.
Wow.
Neil Armstrong has passed away, 2012. I'm not sure about Michael
yeah.
Collins, but Buzz Aldrin's alive still. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
He punched a guy in the face because he was like, "You didn't go to the moon. Why are you lying to people? You're a coward." Blah blah blah.
That's
and
pretty
then
funny.
He punched him in the
Wow.
face. It was a great video. You should actually watch it.
Wait, there's a video of it
Yeah,
happening?
it's all around YouTube. Go for it.
What?
It didn't happen too long ago.
Wow.
Yeah. The landing was
Okay.
watched by an estimated 600 million people, like I mentioned before. The exact phrase that Neil Armstrong said is slightly different. You know, it's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says that he's certain he said, or he was meant to say, but I'm pretty sure he did say it, because they've checked it now. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Because that makes sense. He's a man taking a small step. And I think that's what he meant to say. Or there was a transmission error and you couldn't really hear him say.
Or Mandela effect.
Oh! Well, essentially,
Wow.
right?
Bringing it back.
He's bringing everything back.
Throwback.
They had to declare him to customs. Yeah, they almost spent a full day on the moon. And if the mission failed, President Nixon had a speech ready.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I'd say is evidence in itself.
Well, not really.
Yeah.
No.
Because
he
Illuminati
had a speech ready.
Illuminati.
But
controls
he's
the
not
president.
part of NASA.
No, but he was the president of the United States then.
Yeah, Illuminati controls him.
He could have thought the whole moon landing thing happened.
No,
even though NASA did it in a
They
studio.
wouldn't have been able to do it without the president's go-ahead.
No, yes,
He's
they
the
would.
president of the United States.
Dude, they get legally they're allowed to do it.
Yeah,
and
but
then
he
they
would've-
do it.
he would've
They don't
played a
ask the president. They don't go
huge-
and ask the president.
No, but if you're taking off from he'd have an authoritative part to play, surely. Like, it wouldn't just be going on. Plus, it's such a big deal. The president would have been right in it.
He would have been watching from the comfort of the White House.
Oh, 100%.
Guaranteed.
He wouldn't have left the White House.
Or backstage when
That's
they were,
where
when
he
they were
had
filming
his,
it.
That's where he had his backup speech as well.
He was watching in his bloody 5-star room with his colour TV.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was black and white.
Even had David Attenborough's father to like talk to him and commentate on it as it was going on.
Good old Attenborough.
So what? The 1969 mission.
Yeah.
What month did it go in?
I don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
But you said that was coming.
I know, but I thought you'd forget.
I was waiting.
I just kept saying
I was
1969.
waiting this whole time.
No, I had the date written down, but it's not on me right now, and I don't want to give you the wrong date.
Let's just say it was June in America.
Let's not say that.
Let's just say.
Let's just.
Okay, well, hypothetically, June in America.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes a difference when they left, but it was 1969.
Let's just say it was.
Okay.
Because when you think back at the mission, you could almost call the mission summer of '69.
That's a good
That's
one.
the only reason
I've been
he
waiting.
wanted to do it. It's the
Now,
only reason.
now it's just not good. Now it's just...
He pretty much forced that punchline on us. That's why he said June.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't believe they faked it though. Like, what?
Oh my lord.
They did
Alright,
it
guys.
just to
So wait,
spite the other countries.
You actually
know?
think it's fake as well?
It's definitely
Oh.
fake.
It's the final time we do it.
definitely
Straight up,
fake.
yes or no.
Wait. Give me a bit of time. First. I
Wait,
gotta
wait,
go
wait,
gut
wait,
feeling.
it's-
I need
it's gotta
gut.
be-
gut.
it-
Yeah.
it's
gut
gotta
Okay,
be
feeling.
fine.
from the gut, from the
Well, 3,
heart.
2, 1 it, then we'll discuss.
Okay. 3, 2... Wait.
Wait, what are we saying? What are we saying?
yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, it's fake, or no, it's not fake.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Yes.
No. Are you
Yes.
serious? You think it's fake? Oh my god. I'm
It's
quitting
fake,
this.
man.
I'm quitting this episode.
You were both no.
No, I said yes.
You
I
said
was
yes.
I
the
thought
only
it was
no.
fake as well.
Yeah, it's fake. Man.
There's so much evidence.
Why are you so like in love with the moon landing? Like it's almost like if the moon landing breaks up with you and becomes fake, you're
I
gonna be
just
depressed
think
forever.
that NASA is not out there to betray us. NASA is not the government.
NASA is there like any other business to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Think
No,
about even
but
charities.
they're there for good. They're there for research and discovery.
Even
they're
charities are dodgy.
Yeah, charities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But NASA's not a charity.
Doesn't
That's a
matter.
different story.
NASA's close enough to a
Have
charity.
you heard of that charity where the CEO just took all the money?
I'm surprised it hasn't happened more than that
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not surprised.
I just
That's
made
so
that
dodgy.
up. I'm just presuming that happened.
Ah, damn. I was wondering why. It sounded very plausible.
Yeah, it does sound believable.
Yeah.
For me anyways. But
But I don't know why they'd I guess they've just done it for the publicity and just for America to be better than other countries.
Well, the reasoning was to win the space
Shout outs
race.
to our American listeners, by the way.
Nah, it's 100% real. They landed on the moon. Dude, do you want to get punched in the face by Buzz Aldrin?
Show me evidence.
I'll take
That's
you to-
why. That's the thing that made me think that it's not, because I haven't seen any recent evidence, but I haven't looked into it. So this is just my instinct and gut feeling that I say that it.
But
was
now
fake.
I've educated you. You should know. That
But the internet. Remember, the internet is
Dude,
not always.
everything on the internet
Any
is true.
photo can be photoshopped, man.
Yeah,
And
but
edited in any
think
way.
about 1969. Think about the technology then, and think about go to the Smithsonian Museum in America. There's moon rocks there.
Dude, Smithsonian himself is after a bit of money as well. It's all about the money, man.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Money
Yeah,
talks,
it's a
man.
museum.
Money talks.
Yeah, the museum by Jonathan Smithsonian.
Oh, he just made up that name, guys. Do not quote Christopher Coombs ever in your life. But guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed our last conspiracy theory episode with Joshua Vega. Never fear, he'll probably be back, but just not a conspiracy theory. He can tell us a bit about his.
Or maybe he will.
Well, maybe he'll have his own conspiracy theory.
Oh no! Don't get me started on that. There's too many that I think that's just. Oh.
Okay, to summarize all conspiracies in this group, Chris and Josh are believers of the conspiracy theories, and I'm a believer in the truth.
But all your evidence was okay,
Yeah.
but
Here we go.
it's not true.
That was
How is that evidence?
That was one.
Can someone listening right now comment on our Instagram and tell me how that's evidence?
Yeah.
You saw you heard about the photograph and exposing fact. That was
Okay.
a fact.
Yeah, but that's a fact. But it
Yeah.
still does. It still means that the photo can be fake.
I think Gaurav was trying to convince us it was true. The
Yeah.
fact that he had to convince us.
He's a
It's all right.
salesman. That's
I
what he
may or
does.
may not upload this episode now.
But yes, Mr. Joshua Vega, thank you once again for popping into the So Far So Good studio.
Yep, we love having you here, and we'd love to have you again.
Oh, guys, I love being here. But thanks for having me, really.
It's our pleasure.
Anytime, everyone tuning in and watching, thank you once again, and we'll see you
later.
next time.
Peace.